The G7 leaders say that they are all in agreement to help the countries affected by the Amazon as quickly as possible. What can they do?
Well, that's a really incredibly important move, because essentially many of the Northern Hemisphere's rich countries have become prosperous by using our natural resources. And now we're hoping that tropical countries are not going to use theirs in the benefit of all of us for climate change. So absolutely, it's necessary that the rest of the political world compensates those countries for all of for preserving and protecting those forests. They could, local people can make a lot of money from just clearing that forest and using it for livelihood, and they can make their own livelihoods. And so we need to be able to compensate those countries for their losses, which benefits all of us in the long run.
The French President Emmanuel Macron says that the objective must be reforestation. But as we've been talking about, that doesn't really fit with Brazil's president's plan. He has said and continues to say that the Amazon is open for business. So what do you do?
Yeah, it's an incredibly worrying situation because, of course, globally, as a global community, we need global scale restoration. We need to restore forests across the globe to help to offset climate change. But restoration necessarily means that we need to conserve what we already have. And if we're going to be losing old growth forest at the same rate that we're gaining new young forests, we're having a net loss. So it's absolutely a top priority right now to save those existing forests. I think political pressure can be incredibly important. And also every single one of us can play a role, because there are many small projects and NGOs and restoration companies all across the tropics that are doing incredible work, and it's easy to find them and simply donate funds because they are urgently in need of that funding so that they can do really responsible and sustainable restoration. So we can all do our part very easily.
Let's talk about the role of climate change versus the role of deforestation. What do you think deserves more of the blame here, and what impact does the warming of the climate, the warming of the planet, have to do with these fires?
So it's worth noting that fires are natural. They're a natural part of the cycle, and particularly in this dry season, they're very prevalent. But of course, as we drive climate change, those conditions are getting warmer and drier, particularly in those wet tropics. And this is obviously going to increase the prevalence of fires. But the real spike that we've seen this year seemed to be associated with the change in political movement, as it is becoming increasingly easy for farmers and landowners to remove existing forests to use it for cattle grazing. So it's a combination, it certainly is a combination of political decisions and ongoing climate change. And ultimately, it all comes together to feed the same focus. We need political action so that we can stop this deforestation, which contributes to climate change, and it'll stop the resulting fires and the feedbacks that can take place.
What kind of advice would you have, Tom, for viewers who are concerned about the environmental impact that they and their families have? What can they do to reduce the burden that they may be placing on the environment?
So, of course, we've all got our role to play. It's every single one of us is responsible for climate change. And so everything we can do to minimize our emissions is the highest priority. But of course, once we've done that, it's also really, really valuable. And there's some really tangible ways to get involved by drawing carbon out of the atmosphere. And ecosystem restoration is our best solution to do that. There are thousands of projects out there around the world right now restoring forests, but also restoring peatlands and wetlands and grasslands that can draw in a huge amount of carbon. And they are all urgently in need of funding. So every single one of us can, with a click of a button, donate and really have a tangible impact.